Hello and welcome. This is episode 1 of The Confessional. This is a podcast that I've created with the intention of giving people space to be their complete, authentic selves. Oftentimes in today's society, we are placed in a box. We're told what we can and can't talk about, what we can and can't do, right down to the clothes that we can wear, what we can put on our body, and how we can actually express ourselves. In my own life, I have recognized just how damaging this repression and these limitations are, especially to myself and other people in society. And so I've felt this deep calling to express myself more, to talk about those things that I always thought I couldn't talk about, that might be taboo, or things that I was afraid to have other people find out about me because I didn't want to be judged or ridiculed. But the more I lean into that edge and challenge that belief, the more like myself I feel. I feel freer and lighter, and the tension and traumas and disease that I have been holding in my body just begin to dissipate. And it feels so great. For a very long time in my life, I have felt afraid to just speak. The relationships that I had with others were surface level at best. My family and even my best friends didn't know some of my deepest and darkest secrets, and it was a very lonely experience for me. It was very hard and challenging to feel like I had these relationships with these people who didn't even know me. And so stepping out like this is definitely edgy for me. But I know that the more I practice this and the more comfortable I get with this, the happier I will be in the long run. And so this podcast is all about giving people space. This episode specifically, I'm giving myself space to speak about a topic that I have been very passionate about for a number of years, essentially since I discovered it. But I've also just been really afraid to speak it. I really wasn't sure what people would think about me, if I could articulate it properly. And I've held back in actually doing that. And even now, I need to call myself out because this is the first episode of me ever doing a podcast, and I'm feeling vulnerable because I know that there's going to be some nuances that just aren't like perfect. I have walked a path in my life where I felt like I had to do things perfectly, get perfect grades, say the perfect thing, dress in the perfect way, and it just felt so stiff. I went from being like an almost straight A student and wearing like suits to school, essentially, like dress clothes to school, to complete opposite of being like a hippie in a commune and just wanting to be free and express myself. And so this is me sort of tying those two worlds together. And after having gone from one extreme to the other, just really bringing the essence of both of them together and just really acknowledging and honoring who I am and what it is that I stand for. So the topic that I want to talk about today is sex. In my life, I grew up believing that sex was sort of a taboo topic, that it shouldn't really be talked about. I remember watching movies with my family at home, and like a sex scene would show up on the screen, and I would just feel so uncomfortable and like icky watching this in front of my parents. And just remembering like the comments that my mom would sometimes make about like, oh, it's just like a human thing to do. But I had this like deep sense inside of me that it was just like wrong, that I shouldn't be watching that, or that there was just something not pure about that. In my journey, I have learned to connect with myself and connect with my sex energy in a way that just completely shifted my reality. And it occurred to me that there are still several people that are still living in the paradigm that I used to live in. And that these people have no idea that this other reality exists. I've been longing for quite some time to be able to just speak in the heart-centered way that I want to about sex and the sex energy. But I held back, and I had been afraid. So this is my first attempt in speaking out about something that I am truly passionate about and also a little afraid to actually speak about. I may go back and re-edit this video or add in things afterwards, or even just completely do it over after having watched it or released it like a month later. But I'm okay with that, because in this life, my message is about being authentic. And sometimes that means showing up in a silly way and expressing myself in a way that I might regret later, even though I know I won't really have regrets. Because it's all just part of the process. It's all just a learning experience. And I'm grateful for these learning experiences. But if you see me kind of squirmy and just distracted and a little fidgety, it's just because I am still learning how to get through these self-judgments and this self-ridicule and criticism that I have been so programmed to give myself over the years. Expression at its finest. So I'm just going to take a moment to ground before I really dive into this topic. Got a list of questions here that I might refer to periodically. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The question that I have here is, how can I help shift the image of sex? Thinking back to when I was a kid, I remember seeing all these sex symbols in magazines of women wearing basically nothing and only being like flawless in their skin. They were often portrayed in sexual ways, and sometimes it wow, I can't even say it. In ways that just almost expressed the rape culture that we do sometimes live in today. And so I grew up with this belief that it was better for me to be passive, to be shy, to limit myself, and to be small. And so in the first relationship that I had, where I began to explore in a more sexual way, I didn't really fully check in with myself and my own values and ask myself if what I was doing felt okay for me, if that was acceptable for me, or if it was aligned for me. I mean, what I had been doing was also things that I had seen on TV. It was something that was portrayed often in porn. But on a deeper level, it just didn't make me feel the love and connection that I was really looking for. My first boyfriend got most of his information about sex from porn. And so a lot of the things that we would practice were just very goal oriented. It was more about getting to the finish line than having that experience of connecting and being sensual. It wasn't that romantic and heartfelt. We didn't often communicate about the things that we were really passionate and excited about, or the things that we really desired. When I think of sex now, I think of that life force energy, that creative energy, its desire to have something come into fruition. From the time of that first experience that I had with sex up until probably the first 10 years after that, I had experienced different aspects of love and different aspects of connection, but there was still something missing. In a lot of ways, the interactions that I had were still goal-oriented. It was more about reaching the finish line and having that experience, but not really experiencing it. For me, everything shifted when I learned about Tantra. I met someone who, to the best of my knowledge, had studied and learned Tantra for themselves and had participated in the practice of really connecting with their own sex energy, circulating that through their body and just really feeling that movement of the energy. I'll explain shortly what it is that Tantra means to me. But for right now, I would just like you to become aware of the fact that there is this more spiritual side and spiritual way of viewing sex that up until this point in my life, I had no idea existed. For me, up until that point, sex was merely physical. It was a way of showing my love to a degree, but I didn't really know what that love was for me. I didn't know what that meant or what that felt like. And I wasn't even connected with my own body, my own needs, wants, and desires. When I had this experience with this person, it was like everything just slowed down. Probably for the first time in all of the times that I had had sex, I was able to connect with my breath, to really feel that energy moving in and out of my body, to really feel the cells of my body on a deeper level. Even just saying that now, I can notice my awareness slowing down and becoming more present, noticing the sensations on my skin and really connecting with my own breath. In this experience that I had with this individual, I was able to connect with my body on a deeper level. And as a result, connect with their body on a deeper level. And this experience of intimacy that we were sharing together. If we were to say that in the past, the experiences that I had with sex were about reaching the finish line, achieving that climax, I would say that the first experience that I had with a more tantric style of sex was really just about being in the moment. It was about enjoying every moment. To be completely honest, it was as if the sex itself felt better than the climax. Because of the heightened energy, heightened awareness and sensations. My sense of smell seemed enhanced. The sensations on my body seemed enhanced. And I had just felt connected with something other than myself for the first time. It was probably a few months before this experience that I had first started meditating. And in my meditations, I started to focus on my chakras. And this was something that I had only just found out about fairly recently, or at that time, it was fairly recent. And so when I would do my meditation, I would just focus on the different energy centers. So for those of you that don't know, the root chakra has to do with our feeling of security and groundedness, and it's represented by the color red and can be found at the base of our spine. Moving upward, we have our sacral chakra, which is really where that sex energy comes from. It's in our pelvis. It's represented by the color orange, and you can feel it about 3 fingers below your navel, your belly button. This is where that creative energy comes from. You know, when we have that spark of creativity, we want to go out and do something new and exciting. This is where that energy comes from. Moving upwards still, and as I would do my meditations, I would focus on these energy centers, but also focus on drawing that energy upward, starting from the sacral chakra. Because as they say, the sacral chakra is our life force energy. That's where a lot of that energy is stored. And so in order to feel energized, to feel more alive, connect with that energy and just bring it upwards. So as I was sitting in my meditations, I would focus on raising that energy up into my solar plexus, which is around where our stomach would be. This is all about our action, our will, beauty. It's represented by the color yellow. And I like to think of it as a golden, beautiful sun. And the more I focused on the center, the more I would just feel as though rays of sunshine were just beating down on me. And it was so light and so heavenly. Moving upwards still, I would draw the energy from the sacral chakra up into the solar plexus, into my heart center. Really just feeling that connection, that love, that self-love. Envisioning the color green in that center. With every inhale, always pulling up from the sacral chakra, would go into my throat, our vessel of self-expression, what we speak and what we hear. I spent a lot of time over the years healing this center in my own body, becoming more comfortable with my own self-expression. I'm moving the energy upwards still into the third eye, represented by an indigo blue. It's our center of intuition. And the more that I would practice this meditation, I noticed the more connected that I would feel with my own intuition. I would receive more images, clairvoyance, clairsentience, would just have a gut feeling in my body. It was like my psychic abilities were enhanced. And all I was doing was sitting in this meditation and visualizing this energy through my body. The throat chakra is often represented by a light color blue. Moving this energy upward into my crown, which is often a violet light or a deep purple. And as I would do this meditation, I would circularly circulate the energy through these chakras. So once I reached the top, it would then go back down through the bottom into, again, the third eye, the throat chakra, the heart center, the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, into the root, and then bring it back around front. I learned that this is actually a very powerful tantric practice, even though it was something that I was just doing in my own meditation by myself in my room. Tantra for me is really about self-discovery. It's about learning who I am on a deeper level, really connecting with my own energy and my own desires, wants, and needs, and what my body is telling me. I've had a very challenging path, we'll say, of overcoming this victim mentality that I have had, where I frequently feel like I have to search for some kind of guidance or wisdom outside of myself to help heal something in me or solve some kind of problem that I'm facing. In my journey, the more that I connected with my own breath, asked my higher self what those answers are that I'm looking for, the more empowered I began to feel, the more like my authentic self I began to feel, and the more connected I began to feel to other people, because I then felt like I had something valuable to share. I no longer felt as though I needed to just relay information that someone else had given me. I became the storehouse of that information. I was able to ask myself what foods I should eat, why I was feeling so down and depressed, what it was that I really wanted to say, why my body was achy, why I felt sore, why I was feeling so tired, and why I felt such a desire to eat food or smoke weed or drink alcohol rather than just connecting with another human. This self-exploration for me was the beginning of my journey with Tantra. And when I had this awakening during this experience of intimacy and sex with this other person, it was as though my awareness had just completely shifted. And I really didn't understand how it was I was even having sex before and still felt that that was a loving act. And even saying that now, it's like, it was like running on autopilot. You can practice Tantra when you're eating an apple. You can really slow down, connect with your breath, really feel the sensations that that experience gives you. You can chew your food slowly, taste as much of that as you possibly can. Feel the apple in your mouth and in your hand as you're holding it. Or, like what I was doing before, I would eat the apple while watching TV. It's like my mind was in so many different places that I wasn't even being present on the act that I was participating in. I've experienced this many times before, especially while I was high, or even just when I was in university and studying and just wanted to turn my mind off. So I would sit in front of a TV and grab a bowl of chips or whatever and just like start eating and not even be aware of how much I was eating, like what it even tasted like. I was just completely disconnected from that experience. And this is something that I experienced with sex too. It's like I thought I was connected with it because that was all I knew. All I knew was this porn sort of, people in magazines just like making it more of a show kind of connection. And I can't say for sure that I never had experiences that were tantric in nature prior to this one experience. Because I'm sure that there were times that I did feel like I was able to slow down and connect with my own body and connect with this other person. But it wasn't something that I was aware that I was doing, and it wasn't something that I did consciously. It was just like every once in a while there would be these experiences. And, every once in a while it would just be this really great sex. But I didn't know why, and I didn't know how, and I didn't know what I needed to do to actually replicate that. Tantra for me has offered me a way of knowing myself on a deeper level. It's offered me the opportunity to connect with my higher self, my higher guidance. Some people might refer to this as universe or spirit or God or source. Higher self. But it's really just tapping in with our own intuition and what we know in our heart is right for us. One of my favorite practices to do now is to actually circulate that sex energy through my body. And sometimes I will just go from, say, my solar plexus or my sacral chakra up to my heart, and then just bring the energy back down and just play with that experience. And even in my own meditation, sometimes it will bring on the sensation of the Kundalini rising, which for those of you who have not experienced this before, can be very ecstatic. It can be very similar to experiencing an orgasm in its intensity and sensation, but there is no release. It doesn't end. It just, as long as you can keep that energy going and flowing, then you'll feel that deeper connection and ecstasy. When I say that I want to shift people's perspective of sex, What I would really love is to see people slow down, to feel more connected, feel more loved, to pay more attention to their own bodies. The sacral chakra is often associated with tribe. So with the first chakra, you have this feeling of safety and security, but it's represented by one. And then the sacral chakra is represented by two, duality. It's about connection. Sometimes that can be connection with your family or with your partner, your friends. How comfortable do you feel reaching out and just expressing yourself to someone else? All of this energy and these beliefs come from your sacral chakra. There can be different blocks sometimes that hold us back, different beliefs that hold us back from feeling safe to express ourselves, feeling safe to be vulnerable and authentic. Different traumas can happen that cause us to repress our sexual energy, our desires, our creativity. Oftentimes when people will experience bladder infections or yeast infections or different bacterial infections, it is because of some kind of block. The sacral chakra is actually one of my favorites because it is represented by water. And emotion. This is the body that often stores and holds all of our emotions. And through the different tantric practices that I have experienced, I also learned that the prostate in men and the G-spot in women will actually hold a lot of emotions. And this is why different trauma healing, different sexual experiences can be just held onto for a long period of time by people, because it requires a great deal of vulnerability to be able to relax into that energy again, to feel safe enough to connect with someone else, and to even speak and express our own emotions. For a long time in my own life, I experienced this pattern where every time I would have sex with something with someone, it was like something would go wrong. Either I would get like a bacterial infection or a yeast infection or like a bladder infection, and I just like could not figure out why this kept happening. And on a deeper level, I recognized that it was because I wasn't expressing my own emotions. I was making connections with people that weren't true to me, that weren't that deeper level that I was really looking for. It was more of like a one-night stand or a shorter sort of lustful experience, but that wasn't really what I wanted. That wasn't really what my soul was crying out for. And the more I ignored that, the more I started to create this dissonance in my body, which is when these symptoms would appear. But the more I was able to recognize that and honor myself and connect with my body, the more I was able to experience the liberation and freedom from those symptoms. Thinking back to the relationship that I'm in now, I just remember thinking that it had been so long since I have had sex that was that good. And for the first time in a number of years, I didn't have any kind of like symptoms that appeared afterwards. To me, that was definitely a sign that this connection was aligned, that I did feel more of a heart connection with this person, and that there was something deeper available to me. Even now, though, I will still feel some resistance to being vulnerable and practicing Tantra in all of the different ways that I know it exists and all of the different ways that I love to experience it. But it's been such a gift to just unpack that and to still just connect with myself and to really slow down and honor where I am in this moment. The more that I tell myself that it is okay for me to be where I am and not try to get anywhere else, the more at peace I feel in my own life. Having this relationship now has been quite an experience for me in terms of giving and receiving love. Going back to that experience that I had mentioned about feeling like the victim and overcoming that victim mentality, part of that was me living out this inner martyr where I felt like I always had to give to other people, but I was afraid to ask. In a lot of ways, I didn't even know what my own needs were to even ask for them to be met. But in having this safe connection and in opening up with this person on a deeper level, it's given me the space and the safety and the freedom to really just connect and to open up and to honor what it is that I want to ask for. I can't say that I am perfect in this practice yet, but it's something that I am still learning to do, something that I am committed to doing. It's a gift to both give and receive. And if I don't ask, then I recognize that I don't give someone else that opportunity to have those good feelings of giving me something that I want. For a long time now, I've been feeling as though my love tank has been empty, and I just didn't fully understand what it was that I needed to fill it back up. Luckily, I connected with my own intuition and discovered what it was that I needed. I really love hearing about people's relationships and the things that they have overcome, the challenges that they have overcome. One of the topics that I would love to discuss further, and will probably do so in a near episode, is just how our partners really reflect and act as that mirror for our own internal judgments and beliefs. One of the biggest gifts that I would say I've received in this relationship is just having my own self-limiting beliefs and my own judgments reflected back to me. And even though it's really painful at the time and that I do sometimes resist taking ownership and taking that responsibility for my own beliefs and what I am creating. But after the fact, I always appreciate it because I feel so much closer and so much more connected with this other person and with other people in my life as well. I think there has been a lot of shame, a lot of judgments about sex in our society. It makes me sad to think that people are being raped and they feel like they can't talk about it. That people are being molested, that there are pedophiles out there, and that we just sweep these things under the rug and that we don't talk about them. The work that I do has to do with shining light on all of these things that we like to sweep under the rug. To really acknowledge that darkness. Because I know that on a deeper level, there is healing and there is light that can be reached. A lot of this work has to do with finding forgiveness. Not just for the other person, but for ourselves, first and foremost. For taking responsibility and really owning our experiences, not as the victim, but as a warrior. Part of my reason for wanting to talk about this subject today, talking about this creative life force energy, this sex energy, is because I really just want to shift the way that people experience themselves and others, to help them achieve that liberation, that enlightenment, and to know that whatever darkness they are holding on to, that there is something much lighter and much brighter to be achieved on the other side, to be felt on the other side. But that by holding this information in, we can never reach that state that we're longing for. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, or anything that you would like me to talk about in the future, I do encourage you to leave a comment below. If you would like to connect with me further, please like and subscribe to this channel. And I would love to connect with you, just to have a conversation. You can find me in the tribe on Mighty Networks. I will leave information in the comments below. Thank you for taking this time to connect with me, to feel centered, to really honor yourself. It is my goal to create a space where people feel as though they can express their true and authentic self. To let go of the judgments that they may feel, to let go of the fear, the self-limiting beliefs, and connect with that light that we all carry within us. But we cannot fully do this until we connect with that darkness. Only then can we transmute it and release it. So if there's any shame, any judgments, any negative beliefs floating around, just know that you have the power to release and transmute them and find that deeper sense of love that you've been longing for. Thank you again for being here with me today. I hope you've learned something new and are feeling inspired to create in a new way. Much love and peace.